How does the common person distinguish between authentic journalism and a media narrative?
You can't. If the man is clever, you'll never know that he's selling an agenda and he's got a narrative. And but you can only know, not at first sight, but you can know the way he writes, what he writes on, how he covers a particular incident, how he covers a particular story that you heard it differently and you're getting a different angle. He's selling a particular line, he's selling a particular story. But one-off meeting, you will never know. You'll have to study the person.
But do you think these folks in the media or, these NGOs, so on and so forth, right? I mean, do you think they're all ideologically driven, or do you think there's an element of
Many of them start off with ideals. And then they become ideologues. Because the power of money controls what you do. If the donor says कि sorry, कल से नहीं मिलेगा कुछ, unless you take a protest march or sell a particular line or write a particular article which you're not agreeing with, but you have to do it because that is the policy. Then eventually they take over. That's how they take over, no? First entice, give money, give long rope, and then suddenly start pulling back.
So this is something you've written about extensively. But considering that Nazi propaganda has been so well covered, and we know that in communist nations, media, narratives, all stories are incredibly well controlled. In imperialist nations like Britain, all of these stories are so well controlled. Why is it still not priority for other nations, especially nations like ours? I'm not sure that at this point we can be calling ourselves particularly weak, but other nations such as ours do not consider it enough of a game changer, because even regime changes can be organized through that, as we've seen in the Spring Revolution in Arab nations, we've seen in the color revolutions in Ukraine. So why is it not given priority, do you think?
No, I don't think it's a lack of priority. It's a lack of means to spread your word. Americans spread their word through Bollywood, Hollywood. They do it through their newspapers, which they say are the best in the world, because they can say so and their voice reaches everywhere. How has Ukraine war been covered all these months in the Indian newspapers?
With a completely American tilt.
Completely American. So that's their reach. Do we have a reach like that? Do you think Hindustan Times articles would appear as on the op-ed page or on page 8 of International News of Asia of New York Times? No. Unless it is a negative story. हमारे पास, we don't have the means. Where is who listens? Do you think people in the United States listen to Republic TV, watch Republic TV and Times Now and so on and so forth? Maybe the Indian diaspora does, but not the American. We get CNN here, we get France TV, we get BBC, we get all of them here. And then they want us to stop Russia today.
I'm just to play. I'm not actually playing the devil's advocate. I think there's a lack of political will as well, because mainstream media, and especially after COVID, we've seen a rise with Republic TV and other Indian channels, WION, getting an international reach, reaching out to the best in international scholarship, sometimes getting them here. So at least slowly there is some international reach.
I would grant you that. Except that is a voice heard here. Is that the same voice heard in, say, Paris or New York? Would that clip be seen in the drawing rooms of Fifth Avenue, New York?
Could it be seen if there were a political drive behind it? Just because I do think that media
Who will give the political drive? You mean here?
yeah, or any nationalistic corporate drive or any sort of combined willpower, is there something that is lacking? Because
No,
even in
would they even contemplate or think that they should have our relations with India are so good, such a powerful country, we should have their channel on our systems, on our platforms.
Just as a follow up to that, right? I mean, it might cost us a few tens, if not some hundreds of crores, to sort of influence opinion, and if not like New York and Paris and so on, but let's say Dhaka and Kathmandu and Colombo and so on, right? So we should be able to influence opinion positively in our region at least.
They all watch, I believe, in Pakistan TV, in all neighboring countries, they watch Indian channel. That's what I don't know whether they watch news channels, but they watch all the entertainment channels. Well, that's influence in a way, but it's not political influence. It's conditioning the mind but we cannot, if we do not have this in the West, we're not going to be able to sell ourselves, sell our product. They are 90% of American news channels, media is controlled by 6 or 7 groups. So they say they are free, but they're free in a different way.
when it comes to India, can we not have a cohesive messaging when it comes to matters that impact foreign policy, at least? For example, the Khalistan issue, the issue of Kashmir, even today being discussed as a bargaining chip rather than as a part of.
No. We make a first-rate TV production, serial, on Kashmir, just sort of arguing the point, asking. So you've done it. We've done a Pulitzer Prize winner or whatever you would call it, Brookings Award, worthy of that. Will it be seen in the United States? Will we be able to sell it there? Who will buy it? To put it up in his channel in Houston or San Diego. खरीदार चाहिए ना. You can have the diaspora showing it to each other, but diaspora, so it is again limiting it, not showing it to the American, showing it to the Indian American.
उपाय क्या है? What is the solution?
No, you just have to keep trying. One day it'll click.
Because
they came into a vacuum here. We had Doordarshan and we had sometime, then we went private, we had Star TV for some time, then Z or NDTV came in. We began and then suddenly we said, hey, Al Jazeera bhi aa jao, ye bhi aa jao, wo bhi aa jao. We allowed them. Without allowing your own channels to flourish properly, you allowed these chaps to come in also. Not that I watch BBC. I don't watch BBC. I don't watch CNN. I don't enjoy watching them. It doesn't make any sense to me. But that's how it is. We were a vacuum, fertile ground and they had a motive to convert.
Without a cohesive messaging that takes into account a studied approach to reporting on issues, how is it possible to, build media, influence narratives, and again, is there, we can't keep trying one by one now. What is the solution?
How many of our newspapers have resident correspondents in the United States, in Europe, in Russia? How many? I see only one person reporting for Times of India, Chidanand Rajgata.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the same guy.
We're a huge country. We run newspapers. Times of India has 6 front pages as ads. Then you get to the front page, the headline, जो हमारा front page हुआ करता था. We get to that after you shuffle through these damn 6 pages first. You get there. But we have no money to have correspondents in San Francisco, San Diego, or Houston, where a lot of Indians are living. They will be your carriers. They will carry your news.
So it is a lack of will, no?
Lack of direction, lack of will. Nobody wants. How do you force Times of India or Hindustan Times or any of these newspapers that we will let you do this unless you have 6 correspondents in these places? And show me what they're saying. You must have one in Washington. You must have one in New York. नहीं, वो ऐसे ही चला रहे हैं. न्यूज़ देना है तो वहाँ से दे दी. Reuters and CNN and AFP. Nobody else is saying what is happening. Why doesn't an Indian correspondent sitting in New York says, this country, there is a rape, this city, there is a rape every other day. And these are the people. Let him file that report. उसको भगा देंगे.
Intelligence and narrative building. What is the overlap here, since, you've written about it? Apart from
Overlap.
please read the book.
Overlap
but-
of intelligence. Overlap तो यही है कि, when you want to build narratives, you have to do it discreetly. You have to do it in a particular direction. You can't let it be 100 minds working on the same theme and giving 100 answers. You've got to focus it. Then somebody has to do the channeling. Somebody has to put the thing on roller coasters or on trails, let it run in a particular direction without getting involved yourselves. So you establish, like they do, Americans, Amnesty International or this and that. They all create narratives. The Pentagon and the CIA have resident, within quotes, ambassadors in Hollywood, where they tell them if your film is aesthetically okay or whether it is factually correct or this is not how it is done. They actually allowed Top Gun to be filmed at one of their air bases with a genuine aircraft, to make it real. And what do we produce?
Patan.
This is part of the ultimate goal, by the way, for the audience.
Yeah, it is there. That up till you sell your own story, nobody is going to bother about you, and it's not easy going to be selling stories because there are already entrenched interests there, and we are doing nothing to challenge it.
What do you think of this? Are there some red lines that should happen when it comes to journalistic ethics with regards to terminologies and American influence on those terminologies?
We're not going to be able to change their terminology unless we
For
change
our
ours.
audience?
We won't change it.
No, but the way we cover our news itself, do you think that the government and the policy and the establishment can kind of, if not, crack down on some of these,
they
establish
should.
guardrails at least in terms of what they should and should not do?
There can be sort of code of conduct. That when a terrorist attacks, he is a terrorist. He is not militant. He is not
Or a headmaster's son or something like that.
doctor's son or headmaster's son, and you can't go around jappi-powering him. You don't do that. These are personas non grata, and they should be treated like that. And governments should lay down. There will be usual hullabaloo. No, this is all. If it's Congress, they'll say the Congress is at fault. If the BJP is doing, the BJP. But you have to make up your mind what you want to do. If you are not going to do it yourselves, why do you expect the other chap to do it? Why should the BBC do it? BBC turn around tartly and tell you, we call them gunmen till proven otherwise. So we have to learn to set the yardstick ourselves. He is a terrorist, is a terrorist. He is nothing else. His religion comes later. The first thing is terrorism.
Human rights violations are usually cited for terrorists. It's
Yeah.
not cited for their victims.
No, it isn't. Yeah. Because it suits you to cite the human rights of the terrorist. It doesn't suit me to, if at that particular juncture I want to support this movement so that it continues to bother you. So I'll say, you're harming this terrorist, you're violating human rights by torturing him, etc., etc. And promptly turn around and do the same thing yourself and say it is fine. That time the human rights are not an issue, and you fill up Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib with all these torture cells. So it's all matter of, there's no hard principle that is not to be broken. These are all matters of convenience. Your narratives are also matters of convenience. You've suddenly found that Saddam Hussein had WMD and he had Al Qaeda, and you proved it. You had that Colin Powell showing that little file in UNC, and they said there were 16 words that were used, etc., etc. You created a narrative and fell into a trap. I mean, they might have killed Saddam Hussein in the end, but what did they get? A Shia government supported by Iran. And then you had Mr. Bush announcing mission accomplished. Actually, they say the mission accomplished was not about the military victory. It is about returning to the petrodollar, because Saddam Hussein was quietly swinging to the euro petrol scheme. So they wanted to bring him back. That's mission accomplished for all the oil companies. So narratives are essential, narratives have to be made, but then how do you create a situation where people become receptive to your story? It has to be made attractive. It shouldn't be boring. It should be something he is interested in knowing. The first thing you have to do in any story is that I should be interested in learning about that. You can't force that story on me. If there is no interest in me or in myself, then why do you want to sell that story? I'm not interested. I won't watch it.
So, about narratives, when it comes to the ongoing genocide of Bangladeshi Hindus, the past genocide of Yazidis, the exodus of the Kashmiri Hindus, all of this has happened, and now we have the Bangladeshis going through it again. And it is very carefully covered up by media narratives, and despite Dr. Jaishankar actually bringing it up, this has deliberately not gotten any attention. So is that part of the narrative? Is active suppression part of the narrative?
Not to tell a story is also part of narrative. I just put it aside. It didn't happen. That's it. But if it were another country and nothing happened, maybe 2 people were killed, and they'll make a story out of it. So narratives don't have to be based necessarily on truth. You might have an element of truth. It's ideal if you have a lot of truth, but you can sell a story of attacking Iraq with WMDs, who had WMDs when he had nothing. So it is not important to have stories with truth, but more dangerous, I think, far more dangerous, is to sweep it away. Because that is also a different kind of dishonesty. But I suppose these kinds of things are not really of great importance in statecraft. What you don't want people to know, we won't tell you. That's what I said. It is quite often self-censor. They know this is taboo, we won't do this story.